It's your post-match, and it is the EFL Cup. It's the Carabao Cup, it's known as these days. I've got Les and I've got Pete with me, and Everton have come with an away victory. They've come away with goals scored, albeit against a League One side that's bottom of the competition, but that's by the by. Everton have won 2-1 and are through to the third round of the Carabao Cup, which has just been drawn. We'll try not to be too down and dismal to talk about that we got Aston Villa away in the round 3 draw. We probably should have done this post-match before this, so we're a little bit more happier. But lads, I'll come to you first, Les. What do you make of that? And don't want to too simple to say, but a game of two halves.
Probably, yeah. Just before we get into that, what do you call this cup? What's your first recollection of what this cup's called? Mine's the Milk Cup.
But it will always shows how old you are.
Cup to me.
Coca-Cola Cup for me was Coca-Cola Cup or just League Cup.
No, mine's Carling Cup.
Oh, the Carling Cup.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm glad
that. So my first one was the Milk Cup.
Well, I feel like younger than you two now.
I remember the Rumbelows Cup as well.
The Rumbelows.
The Coca-Cola Cup was the one that stuck for me.
No, Les, you'll go back to the time when we weren't in Europe, weren't allowed in Europe. There are all those different named competitions, weren't there? Didn't we win one of them was it against Crystal Palace we won years ago?
No, Palace fucked us 4-1 in the Zenith. I think it was the Zenith Basic Systems, wasn't it?
Everton.
So just before we launch into this game, so for anyone listening who doesn't remember all this, like after the European ban, the FA or the Football League or whatever implemented like different cup competitions for those teams who got banned from Europe, like Luton and Norwich and Coventry. Do you think and also as well, to be fair, you probably would never get into Europe ever again, to give them something else to do midweek when they would normally have been playing a European game, and it was utter shite. But yeah, there you go.
Did we win?
Probably not as shite as that game tonight, or maybe even more shite. But that game was bad, wasn't it?
Today, yeah. It was abysmal for that. Well, 3/4 of it, I'd say.
It was, as you said, it's clearly a game of two halves, but it's absolutely fucking unforgivable that an Everton team performs like that against the bottom team in the whole of the professional football pyramid. It was as bad as I've ever seen. We've all seen some fucking terrible cup games against lower league opposition, but that first half was pretty much as bad as I think I've ever seen. The goal they scored was like blatantly offside, which now again makes an absolute mockery of the whole VAR thing and how shit the officials are. Like it showed at half time that linesman had an actual line drawn on the pitch, because rugby gets played at Doncaster's ground. An actual line drawn on the pitch where he could clearly see the lad, like the fella who scored, was miles offside when that ball got chipped in, but didn't give it. And it's like, you just feel now that this game's on telly, and you see it in the Premier League, they're scared to give a decision because they know they'll get bailed out or otherwise by VAR. Other end of the league, they're shit scared to give a decision in case the telly makes a twat out of them and they've missed it. Now, this linesman tonight has missed an absolute fucking nailed on offside. I mean, it wasn't even close. He was miles offside and he's missed it. And, that could have all sorts of ramifications for Everton's season. Don't get me wrong, fully deserved to be 1-0 down at half time because he was shit. But it's absolutely unforgivable that officials are missing decisions, like easy decisions like that, because for my money, they're scared to give them because they don't know what to do now, because they know they're on telly and they think we're going to get slated if we get this wrong. So they just let it go. But, in a way, that's worse. I don't know. I mean, I'm probably picking at the wrong thread here because Everton were terrible in that first half, but it's infuriating, isn't it? It's like Millwall the other season. The fact that, we were terrible, but we got knocked out by the most ridiculous handball goal, and it's not good enough. I don't know. I'll let you lads pick up on this before we go on any further. But the overriding thing for me was we were shit first half. We got away with the second half. Beto looked decent when he came on, But that decision to not rule that goal offside was pathetic.
Yeah. We'll get into Beto's the nice point of the evening, which we'll finish with when we've got through the rest of it. But Peter, I'm just interested to get what your feelings were here after that first half, because obviously there was a lot of fury on all the social media and whatnot, and rightly so for the way we played. But then there was this other narrative that's developed, given how poor we've been in the first 3 Premier League games this season, and that's all about Sean Dyche. Wonder what your feelings are with this, because I've watched him. I've sort of the way he is on the touchline, but also his selections, the way in which the team plays, what he's trying to get going with some of these lads. And I think there's a lot of criticism, rightly so, towards him. But what were your feelings at that particular time in the game, come half time, come to the point where we actually looked like we were going to score a goal?
Well, firstly, I probably would have muted our chat on WhatsApp and turned my phone off. And I wouldn't be talking to you right now if it had carried on the same way in the second half. To be honest, I mean, there's a reason why a lot of them players, aren't regarded as starting players for us now. I think Michael Keane looked nervy as always. Mykolenko very limited. I was talking to some of my mates at half time, just saying like, we've gone from Leighton Baines and Seamus Coleman to Mykolenko and Patterson, and it's games like tonight where it really hits home just how poor they are in a sense of going forward. And we've been used to having such great players in those positions over the years that I feel that those two in particular really showed tonight. I think the midfield as well was anonymous for large parts, especially in the first half. Amadou Onana seems to get into it a bit better in the second half when he had someone to link up with. I think, to be honest, obviously we can talk about Beto and we're going to talk about him later on. But the biggest change for me was bringing Idrissa Gana Gueye on in the middle. I feel that he actually changed the game in a sense where we were able to actually break the play up in the middle and get the ball moving a bit better. Because in that first half, we were just far too pedestrian. There's too many players out there who thought that this would be a walk in the park, and that they were, you could tell that they had the attitude of we're playing lower league opposition, and they look like rabbits in the headlights. I feel like the goal as well, although it was offside, it was probably weirdly, I think we needed that. We needed that kick up the arse because the way the first half was going, we could have easily been 2 or 3 down. They had some really good chances, and if against better opposition, we'll get punished for that for those chances, just like we did against Aston Villa away in the last away game. So I think there's a few players in that side who I think that Dyche will have learned even more about them tonight, and hopefully we won't be seeing too much more of them.
Les, did you have much issue with the lineup that he put out there? Because look, it's an argument that it's age-old argument, isn't it? That people say, well, you can't put out your full first 11 in a mild to average football competition. That essentially you put out your lesser first 11 until you get to a point in a competition where you get into a quarter-final and whatnot. Then you start taking it more serious. And today it felt a little bit like that when I saw that it was Keane and Godfrey at centre-back. The thing where it enjoyed me the most, I say enjoyed me, that made me quite pleasant to see, that put me to Twitter when this came out, was it's obvious then that it's going to be Tarkowski and Branthwaite that start against Sheffield United, which I think many of us, or many fans, don't want to speak for everyone, would probably take that, given how it was much better the other day against Wolves. But aside from that as well, what did you think Mykolenko back into? Is that very much what I was saying there? That sort of case I was saying there of it's not a full starting 11 that you'd want to see in a Premier League game.
Yeah, I never really thought ahead to Sheffield United, but yeah, that's a really good point. How you make it, and it kind of like sort of cemented the fact that we don't really want to see Keane and Godfrey as centre back ever if we can help it. But yeah, when I saw the team, I was actually quite excited about the game because I thought, you know what, this is probably the first time in a very long time where a manager looks to have taken the League Cup seriously, probably because he had to. I think if we'd have got any sort of points from our first 3 games, you might have seen him go a little bit less strong
Yeah.
that game. Maybe put players like Onyango in the midfield, stuff like that. First half, to be fair, he couldn't have done any worse than anyone in that midfield. Yeah, I was quite happy with the team. I thought, you know what, he's kind of gone for this here. Good to see Chimetti up front, but again, first half he looked like a bit of a competition winner. It was weird, wasn't it? Because I looked at that team and I thought, okay, yeah, this is sound. He's put out a relatively strong team here, and we're going for it. And he got schooled in the first half by Doncaster, who were bottom of League Two. Blackburn had just gone and bladdered Harrogate Town there. Harrogate Town was 17th in League Two, and Blackburn have stuck 8 past them. And I know no two games are the same. You can't really call it like that, but it kind of feels like it says a lot, that doesn't it? About the sort of state of us at the minute, that we can't go out and just do a professional job against a side like Doncaster, who were like really struggling in League Two. With the team that I would happily put out, I was glad he put Pickford in goal, because normally that would have been your second choice keeper going in. Like last season against QPR, it was Begovic, wasn't it? And he was like a statue when we were taking those penalties, and it was dreadful. So I was glad about the team choices. I thought Keane and Godfrey, yeah, fine. They should be good enough against these, but the whole team, it just had no cohesion at all, did it? That first half, there was nothing there at all that made it even look like these were 11 lads who play football not just regularly but for a living. It was that bad. I don't want to sound like I'm being dramatic or anything here, but it actually was that bad. The first half, he got properly schooled by a really bad side from Doncaster, and that was a side I was happy with. So maybe that says I know absolutely fuck all about football, because if I was happy with that side and it got schooled like that, but I don't know. It feels like we properly got away with one there tonight, and do you know what? I think there's still as many questions as there are answers going into this next part of the season, because we won. Beto looked good when he came on, which we'll come on to now. And Juma eventually got the winner, even though he didn't look great for the whole game. But I think there's still so many questions around this team based on that tonight. It's very worrying going into Sheffield United at the weekend, because make no mistake, they're gonna kick fuck out of this team at the weekend. And we've really got to be up for that so we don't get beat. Yeah,
I think that's an excellent point you've made there about selection-wise now. There's apart from Beto when he came on, possibly Adrisagay I thought was decent when he came on. Things seemed to change quite a bit when that happened. Obviously Tarkowski and Branthwaite I would expect to come back in. Even Ashley Young when he came on for Patterson, slightly better. But other than Beto, I'd say here, Peter, is out of everyone that came on and showed for us today, there's only him and maybe Onana in the second half as well, who've properly done themselves justice as players who are going to have a positive effect for us at the moment.
Yeah, I thought James Garner did reasonably well as well. I think he sort of ended up at right back, didn't he? And then Godfrey moved across there when Tarkowski came on. But I thought James Garner in the second half got on the ball well and put some decent balls into the box for certainly one for Beto where he hit the post. It was a bullet of a header, absolute bullet of a header. But yeah, I mean, do you know what, Dave? One of the things that we've been lacking so much, certainly since Richarlison left, is a talisman. And someone for the supporters to get behind, and someone to really sort of get the crowd on the feet, and someone to really believe in. And I don't want to get carried away, but just getting someone in like Beto could make such a massive difference in terms of the whole mood of the football club, because the guy has come on. His attitude from the first kick was fantastic. He was chasing everything down. He looks a lot quicker as well than what I thought he was. He's got a really long stride. He covers a lot of ground. I feel like he's going to be a player who Evertonians are going to love. And what better way to kick off your Everton career than to get that goal? And it was a lovely finish as well. But again, talking about his attitude, on the flip side, when you start games like this and you've got players who are on the periphery, people who aren't necessarily going to be starting in the Premier League every week, it's up to them in these types of games to step up. It's up to them to try and go out there and fight for their place and show what they can do and give absolutely everything and give the manager a headache and give the manager a decisions to make. There's far too many players in that squad who just don't have that desire. They just don't seem to have that willingness to try and fight for a place. They're just happy to just go along and it shows in their style of football. It shows in their non-committal approach to football. And I think that was massively obvious. So when the substitutes that came on made a difference, I think a lot of it was to do with desire and not wanting to be part of a team that got knocked out by the bottom of the football league. So yeah, I think, as I say, Beto will bring us a lot in terms of in terms of the shape, in terms of having a focal point, but also I think he'll give the fans a massive boost as well, because we've been crying out for someone to be a talisman and someone that we can all love and get behind, and I just really hope that he can do the business for us. And as I say, I think tonight we saw a few glimpses of it.
You talk about exaggerating about things, but I think there's a time and a place for that to actually happen. If you get to a stage where Everton go and win, I don't know, 3 or 4 games on the spin, and he scored maybe half a dozen goals in that's when people start getting carried away and thinking, wow, are we even going to still be able to keep somebody who can bang goals in like this? But when you score one against a League Two side here, how difficult that has been for us to actually go and do that, Les. I think it's important that stays in people's minds when we're talking about something like this. And look, it's extremely sad. If you're a fan of another club, listen to it, as many fans do, listen to our podcast and post-match. And then we're saying stuff like, oh, he thought he was brilliant, he came on, he changed the game. And then, lo and behold, fans of Premier League clubs will be saying, hang on, it's only Doncaster, it's only League Two. But I tell you what, have you watched Everton in any game so far this season? We certainly look like we were on that level anyway.
I mean, it's not just this season. I mean, this is a competition and a round in which Everton are notoriously bad. We have gone out to some utter dross over the years, largely because we've been shit ourselves. But this game, I think as soon as we saw it the weekend that Doncaster were like rock bottom of the entire professional football pyramid. We looked at it and thought, oh Christ, this isn't going to be easy, and it never was. But this isn't exclusive to Everton this season or Everton in the last few seasons or just crap Everton teams. You go back. Let me take you back to the 80s. I've got to do this every podcast. 80. I think it was 85 maybe around then. We struggled against Telford, but beat them 3-0 at home. The Cup Winners' Cup run, we beat UC Dublin. University College Dublin 1-0 over 2 legs, I think it was, something like that. So Everton they've struggled. They struggle in games like this. They always have done. The best teams at Everton have struggled in games like this. So it was never going to be a formality. I said before, Blackburn beat Thingy 8-0. We were never going to do that. We very, very rarely do that. Blackburn won't go on and win this competition. I don't think we will. But we might. You can't draw your conclusions about the team or the season 3 games into the Premier League, 1 game into the League Cup. You can't draw your conclusions about everything. Honestly, I was that first half. I was ready to just sack them all off. But do you know what? They've got through it. Dice made some changes. It worked. We won. We're in the half for the next round. We've got Sheffield United next Saturday. It's a big game. It's really hard to get your head around it, isn't it? Because you're so desperate for the team to not just win but play well. That should have been a gimme tonight, but it wasn't. But as I said, it never is for Everton. You never do anything the easy way. You look at like when we won the cup in '95. We properly laboured against Bristol City, and then I think we went and beat Norwich 5-0 at home. It's not a barometer of where you are, what form you're in, how good you are. A cup game's a cup game. It can go either way. You would hope that you would put a better performance in than that. But the main thing is we're through. This is me being optimistic. Though the main thing is that we're through. I'm not inspired by anything I've seen, but we got through. We're in the next round. It's Villa away. Feel like we've been had off massively in the draw there, but you know what? You can only play what's in front of you. So yeah, we're going all the way.
Do you know what? That's the and it has been a relatively positive conversation until we get onto Beto now finally. But us getting Villa away has ultimately took me on a massive downer, because you think sort of, I'm a great believer in fate in many different ways in life, but in particular with football. And then you think when you go and win a game like we did tonight, which, let's face it, we didn't really deserve it for large portions, the majority of that game. Doncaster looked like they were the side that probably deserved to go through to the next round. But the fact we went and did it, that's the sort of thing when I think, do you know what? We've probably got something there we didn't deserve. Does that give us that kick in that'll get you a decent draw in the next round, and maybe you get all the way? We were speaking about this while we were watching the draw before we started the post-match here. And I was referring to the time once upon a time when many people who listen to this, because it wasn't that long ago, when Southampton made it to the FA Cup final against Arsenal and didn't even have to play a Premier League team until the final. That's and this is what I'm getting to now. That's when you think, oh, Everton, we're going to get a decent draw now, aren't we? And you've just mentioned it there, Les. We've got Aston Villa away. You've just ripped us apart in the Premier League. Famous last words. I don't think it'll be as bad as that when we go there, because they probably won't put out a side that they did that annihilated us at Villa Park in the first away game of the season.
Sorry, Dave. As I said, those like, you kind of like you get through a game like that and you think, right, we're in the half. That's the main thing, and you get to a draw like Villa away. Flip side of that, when Everton beat Chelsea on penalties, when Bain scored the winning penalty down at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah.
It was Phil Neville, was it?
The next round. There's momentum. Fucked it. It's like...
Who did we get next round of that?
Reading, and we got beat 1-0.
Oh,
it was Reading at home, wasn't it?
Yeah. That's it, to the semis, wasn't it?
We got beat, yeah. And it's like, so, you can't, like... the massive cliche is you've got to take each game as it comes, and it kind of is like that. It's frustrating that we've got Villa, but you know what? We could have got, I don't know, or something away, and it would have been just as bad a draw.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it might be a good thing that we got Villa, as you said. They rest players. We put out a full team. Beto does the business because he's clearly the best striker in the division. So it could be that.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? And also the question is, the other dilemma that I go through with something like that is when we're in such a already desperate position at the bottom of the Premier League after 3 games. I really hope it doesn't come along as something that gets in our way of what we need to do in the Premier League, if you get what I mean, because that has to be the priority. But we need to wait and see with that. Come on, we'll go on to the striker that's going to win the Ballon d'Or for Everton and score more than Erling Haaland this season, and that's Beto, who came on. I'd implore anybody, if they haven't already listened to the piece me and Matt did earlier this week with Nima from the Italian podcast. It's absolutely brilliant. He tells us all about the player, including when he used to work at KFC, which is a really, really fun story. So do go and listen to it if you can. And he told us all about him, and he came on the pitch and did exactly what he was talking about, and that is a player that's 6'4" that usually doesn't have pace. But Pete, we saw this today, and one of the typical YouTube videos that you see with new footballers who always look like Pele, no matter what. He is actually lightning quick and 6'4" tall. It's not often you see strikers who have both of those luxuries, is it?
No, it's not. And I think I touched on it before. It's his stride. He just covers ground so quickly, and that was something that really stood out for me tonight. At the end of the day, it's easy to sort of to dismiss performances against lower league opposition, but one thing that you do keep an eye on are things that come, that sort of count against any opposition. So things like pace, positioning, movement, things, attributes like that you can actually quantify just from seeing how someone plays and how someone sets up. And certainly that was something that impressed me straight away from Beto. He's got that little knack of almost looking disinterested as well. When he's pressing, he sort of steps the yard off, looks disinterested, and then bang, he comes into action, he springs into action. And as I say, I think he's one that Evertonians are going to love. I don't want to get carried away, but we've been so desperate and crying out for that talisman, and I'm really, really hopeful. And I think I said before as well, that header in the second half where he hit the post, he's going to cause problems. He really is. So the other thing as well to mention, in terms of Beto's goal, I thought Neal Maupay did well for the build up to that. Sorry, was it for Beto? No, it was for Danjuma's goal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I thought Neal Maupay did really well there, and Neal Maupay's a player who, the poor lad. I feel sorry for him, to be honest with you. The amount of games he's gone without scoring, it just isn't going. It just isn't working for him, is it? Is it at Everton? If he's still here by the end of the transfer window, and he is able to be brought on off the bench, at stages, I think you'll probably see the best of him when he's got someone like Beto playing up front with him. He clearly doesn't suit the system of playing up front on his own, but in terms of getting into those little pockets of space and those little 1-2s inside the penalty area and things like that, I think that's where Neal Maupay is at his best, if there is one. So we might have seen a glimpse of that tonight if Maupay ends up staying, but we'll see.
I completely agree on that, mate. I know he gets a lot of stick, and he's clearly not good enough to just play up front on his own. But I think there is definitely a place for him in that sort of playing up with another striker, sort of maybe winning fouls outside the box, linking up the play between the midfield and the strikers. He's clearly not like a number 9, an in the box player. No. He just isn't. But I think there definitely is a role. If we keep him, it's not the end of the world if we use him correctly. The fact that he's brought in as a kind of replacement Calvert-Lewin for when he's injured is an absolute travesty. But that's not his fault, and he's not that player. And I think there is a place for a player like him in the squad, because he's I'll probably get killed for this, but I don't think he's as bad as everyone says. He can't finish his dinner, but I think link up play with a striker who can. I think he could definitely do a job there, to be honest.
I think as well, I think the difference is as well with Chermiti is, Chermiti obviously is very raw, but with Chermiti and Beto in particular, they will occupy defenders, which will then automatically, the defenders will be drawn to them. Defenders will know they have to get tight. They'll be fearful of them. And it's when you've got players like that to distract defenders, where players like Maupay can then capitalize on that extra little bit of space in the box. And also, they're not playing he wouldn't be playing with his back to goal anymore. Yeah. He'd actually be facing the goal. And I feel like with Neal Maupay as well, in terms of finishing, I just think that he's one of those players where if he's got too much time to think, he just falls to pieces. Whereas if he acts on instinct, we saw the goal last season against West Ham, but his only goal for Everton. Again, it was a very quick sort of, it came to him so quickly and he finished it. I feel almost like with him, because of the pressure that's on him and because he's felt that pressure, he's just overthought everything. He's overthinking all the time. But as I say, if you've got someone who can take that pressure off, and all he has to basically worry about is just getting into little pockets of space in the box and not have to be that target man. Again, you might see the best of him, but I personally think it's going to come together. I really do, and certainly once we've got Dwight McNeil back, once we've got Harrison back there to put those balls into the box for Beto, for Dominic Calvert-Lewin, for Chermiti. I know that we've lost the first three games in the league, but I'm more optimistic about staying in the Premier League now than I was last season.
Yeah, I agree with it. I'm not too despondent with everything. I mean, half time in this game, I probably was. But yeah, do you know what? As I said, we turned it around and we won it, and that's the main thing. And I don't know. I do think if you look at it slightly objectively, there are other factors where we have got players to come back. Beto's coming tonight. He's done the business. He came on. We looked a completely different team with him. I just think that there are a few points where you think, do you know what? We might be all right. There's a long way to go. Don't get me wrong, and that was far from good enough tonight. Because, as I said, that first half was probably as bad as I've ever seen. But I don't think, I think the fact that we won, we scored, we won. That's a bit of the monkey off the back, isn't it? Yeah. Which basically what this sort of competition should be for. League 2 of the round 2 of the League Cup. if you're having a bit of a shit time in the league, round 2 of the League Cup, that's the game where you play some lower league fodder, you go out, you win. Right, we've done that. It's off our back.
Yeah.
That's what this part of the competition should be for capable Premier League teams. Which I'm not saying we are exactly at the minute, but we might be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, let's hope we're still saying the same thing at about 5 o'clock on Saturday night as well, that we've just won a game against
It'd be about 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon. It's 12:30, isn't it?
Oh, is it really the early game? Well, there you go, mate.
Yeah.
It'll ruin your Saturday afternoon then as well, won't it? Not just your Saturday night. But yeah, thanks for listening to us so late on a Wednesday night. As you know, we're always here. We commit ourselves to all of the post-match games. More shows coming up for the rest of the week as well. We've got Subs Weekly coming up tomorrow on Thursday. Hope you've enjoyed this on your trip home and you get home safely, and do let us know your comments and everything else like that. We'll be back tomorrow once again with another podcast, and we'll speak to you soon. Up the toffees.